At Easter lunch, my grandma passed out envelopes to everyone except me. I smiled, took a quick selfie, and slipped out without saying a word. An hour later, my uncle called in tears, begging me to take down my post. I thought I knew my family. I thought I knew where I stood. But one Easter lunch, a handful of white envelopes, and a grandmother's deliberate act of pettiness didn't just expose a gaping wound in my family, it shattered the carefully constructed lies of 3 decades and revealed a truth so shocking, it changed everything. My name is Haiti, and I'm 28. For as long as I can remember, my family felt like a beautiful, intricate tapestry, but one with tangled threads I couldn't quite unravel. At the center of it all was my grandmother, Margaret Thompson. She's 83 now, sharp as a tack, and frankly, a force of nature. With Grandma Margaret, there's no middle ground. You're either her golden child, showered with affection, or you're not. And for most of my life, I truly believed I was her little star. She praised my grades, my artwork, every little thing. I was her special one. But as I hit my teenage years, a subtle, chilling shift began. I started noticing how differently she treated me compared to my cousins. It wasn't just a feeling, it became glaringly obvious. The real turning point, though, was after I graduated college. I was the first in our family to get a degree, a huge milestone. My parents, Linda and Robert, were ecstatic, especially my dad, who never had the chance to go to college himself. Grandma Margaret's reaction? A polite, but utterly cold, "Congratulations." It felt hollow. Like she was reading lines from a script. Meanwhile, my cousins, Jake and Emma Rodriguez, my Uncle Tony's kids, seemed to float through life, doing no wrong in her eyes. Jake had dropped out of high school, bouncing between construction jobs. Emma got pregnant at 19 and was a single mom working part-time. I'm not judging their paths, not at all, but it was just bewildering. Why did their struggles earn her unwavering praise, while my achievements were met with lukewarm indifference? And then there's my other uncle, David Thompson, Grandma Margaret's youngest son. The perpetual golden child. He's 45, never held a steady job, been married 3 times, barely sees his kids, and somehow, always needs money. Money that Grandma Margaret happily provides. Me? I got a stable job, bought my own apartment, financially independent. You'd think that would count for something, right? Nope. The bizarre family dynamics really hit me hard at Christmas, about 3 years ago. Grandma Margaret gave everyone presents except me. When I asked her about it, she just said she forgot and would make it up to me. She never did. That's when I knew this wasn't accidental. This was a message. My mom would always make excuses. "Oh, you know Grandma, honey, she's getting older." But I knew. This wasn't about age or memory. It was deliberate. The way her face lit up when Jake or Emma walked in, versus the polite, distant nod for me. It was a stark contrast. My dad would just get uncomfortable when I tried to talk about it, changing the subject. My mom would get defensive, accusing me of being too sensitive. So, eventually, I just stopped. I stopped asking. I tried to accept that, for whatever reason, I wasn't her favorite anymore. But this past Easter? This Easter was different. This Easter was the final, brutal straw that ripped everything wide open. Our family always gathers at Grandma Margaret's for Easter lunch. It's this grand, traditional affair she's hosted for decades. Her beautiful old Victorian house, the good china, fresh flowers, an incredible spread of food. Everyone was there, my parents, Uncle Tony and his wife Maria with Jake and Emma, Uncle David with his latest girlfriend Jennifer, and me. We'd just finished the main course, and Grandma Margaret stood up, beaming. "I have something special for everyone," she announced. My heart started to pound. The Christmas memory flashed in my mind, but I pushed it away. "This is Easter," I told myself. Asterisk, she said everyone. "It'll be different." Asterisk, she disappeared into the kitchen and reappeared with a stack of crisp, white envelopes. One by one, she moved around the table. "Tony, this is for you and Maria," she cooed, her voice warm. "And Jake, Emma, here are yours." She went to Uncle David and Jennifer, then to my parents. I sat at the end of the table, waiting, a hopeful, nervous tremor running through me. Everyone started opening their envelopes. Checks. Big ones, judging by the reactions. Jake actually gasped. Emma started crying and hugged her. Even Uncle David, usually so nonchalant about his regular payouts, looked genuinely surprised by the amount. And there I was. Still at the end of the table. No envelope. Grandma Margaret had made her way around every single person except me. She looked right at me for a split second, and I almost thought she was saving mine for last, building up to some grand gesture. Instead, she just sat back down, completely composed. "Well, I hope everyone enjoys their Easter gift," she said, as if nothing was amiss. "It's so wonderful to have family together like this." I felt like I'd been physically punched in the gut. The table buzzed with excited chatter, people talking about their checks, and I just sat there, numb. This wasn't for getting a Christmas present. This was a public, deliberate, humiliating exclusion, right in front of everyone I loved. My mom caught my eye from across the table. Her look screamed, "Don't you dare make a scene." My dad stared intently at his plate, uncomfortable, silent. No one else seemed to notice, or care. In that moment, I had two choices: blow up, demand an explanation, and ruin Easter for everyone, or handle it with what little grace I had left. I chose grace, but with a twist. I plastered on a polite smile, congratulated Jake and Emma on their gifts, and then said, "You know what, Grandma? This has been lovely, but I just remembered I have some work to catch up on at home. Would it be okay if I headed out a little early?" Grandma Margaret looked almost relieved. "Of course, dear. Thank you for coming." I hugged everyone goodbye, still smiling, still performing like everything was perfectly fine. But before I left, I paused. "Oh, before I go, could I get a quick family photo for my Instagram? You know me, I love documenting our family gatherings." Everyone gathered around the dining table, all those white envelopes clearly visible, checks probably still spilling out. Grandma Margaret was beaming, the proud matriarch, surrounded by her generous gifts. I took several photos, different angles, then a final selfie, my smile wide, perfectly posed in front of the group. "Perfect," I chirped. "These will be great memories." I drove home in a daze. Not even crying yet, just numb. But the second I walked into my apartment, the reality hit me like a freight train. I collapsed on my couch and just sobbed. Why me? What had I done? Was I being punished for being successful? For not needing her money like the others? Was my independence a crime? The questions spiraled, and I had no answers. After the tears subsided, the anger flared. A white-hot, righteous anger. And that's when I decided. I opened Instagram. I picked the group photo where all the envelopes were undeniable. And I crafted a caption that was honest, but carefully worded. "Easter lunch with the family. Grandma surprised everyone with generous Easter gifts today. So grateful for family traditions, even when they remind you exactly where you stand. Happy Easter everyone. #family, #Easter traditions, #grateful, #memories." It was perfect. To an outsider, a sweet family post. To anyone who looked closely at the photo and read between those lines, it was a thunderclap. Even when they remind you exactly where you stand did a lot of heavy lifting. I posted it. Put my phone away. I didn't expect a drama, just a subtle acknowledgement to my friends about what I was dealing with. But social media has a life of its own. Within an hour, dozens of likes and comments. Friends asking if I was okay, sensing something was off. Others complimenting the photo. Then, some family friends, people who knew our dynamics, started commenting, "Ah, Haiti, I hope you got spoiled too. What did Grandma Margaret surprise you with?" That's when things got interesting. I didn't reply. And people started putting two and two together. My college friend Jessica commented, "Wait, Haiti, are you in this photo? I can see everyone else, but I don't see an envelope in front of where you're sitting." And that's when it really blew up. People were scrutinizing the photo, counting envelopes, counting people. The math didn't add up. My friend Marcus, who knew my family since high school, wrote, "Hold up. Did they really exclude Haiti from whatever this envelope thing was? That's messed up." The comments became a torrent, getting more and more pointed. Direct questions. Observations about favoritism. Genuine outrage on my behalf. But the real explosion? That happened when my cousin Jake's girlfriend, Ashley, saw the post. Ashley doesn't really know our family's deep, dark secrets, but she was at Easter lunch. She remembered. She commented, "OMG, Haiti, I felt so bad for you today. I can't believe they left you out like that. You handled it so well, though." Boom. That comment was a match dropped in a room full of gasoline. Now, everyone knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I had been deliberately excluded from a significant family gift. The floodgates opened. Friends, coworkers, acquaintances, even distant family members were livid. "What the hell is wrong with your family? This is so cruel and unfair. Haiti deserves better." People started sharing their own stories of family exclusion. My mom's friends were commenting, asking what was going on, expressing concern. The post was screenshot, shared, commented on. It was spreading like wildfire, far beyond my immediate circle. And that's when my phone started ringing. The first call was from my mom. Her voice was strained. "Haiti, honey, what is this post about? People are commenting very concerning things." I played innocent. "What post, Mom?" "Oh, the Easter photo? I just thought it was a nice family picture." "Haiti, people are saying you were left out of something. They're asking me all sorts of questions about why you didn't get an envelope." "Well, Mom, I didn't get an envelope." People have eyes. They can see the photo. A long, heavy pause. "Honey, you know Grandma Margaret loves you. Maybe she just had a reason." "What reason, Mom? What could I possibly have done to deserve being publicly humiliated in front of the entire family?" She couldn't answer. She tried to convince me to take the post down, saying it was causing drama, making the family look bad. I refused. I told her I was just sharing a family photo, and people were free to draw their own conclusions. The second call was from my dad. More direct. "Haiti, this post is causing problems. Your grandmother is upset, and frankly, so is everyone else. Can you please just delete it?" "Dad," I said, my voice firm, "I'm not saying anything untrue. I'm not calling anyone names. I posted a family photo with a caption about being grateful for family traditions. If people are upset, maybe they should think about why." He argued, but I held my ground. The post was staying up. But the call that truly shocked me, the one that cracked open the door to everything, came about an hour later. It was Uncle Tony. And he was crying. "Haiti, please, you have to delete that post. Please." My jaw dropped. Uncle Tony? This stoic construction worker, who I'd never seen shed a tear, not even at funerals, was sobbing down the phone. "Uncle Tony, what's wrong? Why are you so upset?" Because people are asking questions, Haiti. Questions we don't want to answer." My heart started to race. "What kind of questions? About why I get treated differently? About why Grandma Margaret doesn't like me as much? About things that happened a long time ago?" A long silence. Then, a whispered sentence that changed my entire world. "Haiti, there are things about our family that you don't know. Things that maybe you should know, but we all agreed it was better if you didn't. But now, with this post, people are digging, and I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "I'm afraid the truth is going to come out. And it's going to hurt everyone." I felt the ground shift beneath me. Uncle Tony, what truth? But he wouldn't tell me over the phone. He just begged me again to delete the post and promised he'd call tomorrow to explain everything. He was crying so hard he could barely speak. I told him I'd think about it, but I knew I wasn't taking it down. Not when I was this close to finally understanding the decades of unspoken pain. The comments on my post kept growing. By evening, over 200 comments, dozens of shares. People were tagging local news stations, asking if they'd cover a story about family cruelty. Others were tagging family therapy accounts. But the most intriguing development was the messages from extended family I hadn't heard from in years. My dad's sister, Aunt Carol, who lived across the country, messaged me, saying she'd always wondered about our family dynamics and if I wanted to talk. My great-aunt Helen, Grandma Margaret's sister, commented on the post with just 3 words, "Call me tomorrow." It felt like this one Instagram post was shaking loose decades of buried secrets. The next day brought more calls. My mom, still crying, begging me. Uncle David, screaming, calling me a selfish brat. But those calls only solidified my resolve. The call that truly mattered came from Uncle Tony, as promised. He asked if he could come over. I agreed. When he walked into my apartment, he looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes red, hands shaking. We sat in my living room. He took a deep, shuddering breath. "Haiti, what I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear. But you deserve the truth. We should have told you years ago." I braced myself. "Your dad isn't your biological father." The words hit me like a physical blow. A punch to the gut. The air left my lungs. I gripped the arms of my chair, my head spinning. "What? Your mom had an affair when she was married to your dad. You're not Robert's biological daughter." My mind reeled. Who? Who is my biological father? Uncle Tony's face crumpled. Tears streamed down his face. "I am." The room spun. I thought I might throw up. My Uncle Tony? My biological father? Jake and Emma weren't just my cousins, they were my half-siblings. And my dad, Robert, the man who raised me, loved me, supported me through everything, wasn't actually my father. "It happened during a really bad time in your parents' marriage," he explained, his voice thick with emotion. "They were separated, talking about divorce. Your mom was staying with us for a few weeks while they figured things out. Maria was visiting her family in Mexico with the kids. Your mom and we made a terrible mistake. It only happened once, but it happened." He nodded, tears still flowing. "When your parents got back together, your mom realized she was pregnant. She didn't know who the father was until you were born and started growing up. You look exactly like Emma did as a baby. Same eyes, same nose. Same everything." I stared at him, trying to process this monumental, unbelievable information. "Does Dad know?" "He figured it out when you were about 2 years old, for the same reasons we did. You look too much like my side of the family. But he chose to stay. He chose to raise you as his own daughter anyway. He loves you, Haiti. You have to believe that." "And Grandma Margaret?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Does she know?" Uncle Tony nodded. "She's known since you were little. And she's never forgiven any of us for it. Not your mom. Not me. And not you. In her mind, you're a living reminder of the affair that almost broke up her son's marriage." Everything clicked. The coldness. The exclusion. The way she treated Jake and Emma like gold, even with their struggles, while my successes were nothing. In her eyes, they were her legitimate grandchildren. I was just the product of a shameful family secret. Why didn't anyone tell me? I choked out, tears finally coming. "Because your dad didn't want you to feel different or unwanted. Because your mom was ashamed. Because I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done. Because we all convinced ourselves it was better if you never knew." I sat in silence for a long time, absorbing the shock. Finally, I asked, "Why are you telling me now?" "Because your post is making people ask questions. People are starting to piece things together. Some of the older family friends remember the timing of everything, and they're starting to comment about it on social media." Maria saw the post and asked me directly. "If you're my daughter," she asked. I couldn't lie to her anymore. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. And now I'm probably going to lose my wife and kids, just like we always feared." I looked at this man, my Uncle Tony, my biological father, sitting in my living room, weeping, as decades of lies finally caught up to him. "Uncle Tony, what am I supposed to call you now?" "You can call me whatever feels right to you, Haiti. I know I don't have the right to ask you to think of me as your father. Robert earned that title. But I want you to know that I've always loved you, even if I couldn't show it the way I wanted to." That's when I started crying, too. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Do you know what it's been like for me? Growing up thinking I wasn't good enough for this family? Thinking there was something wrong with me? Wondering why Grandma Margaret hated me so much. "I know," he choked out. "And I'm so sorry. We thought we were protecting you. But we were just protecting ourselves." I wiped my eyes and looked him square in the face. "The post stays up." "Haiti, please," he pleaded. "No," I said, my voice shaking with conviction. "I've lived with this mystery my whole life. Wondering what I did wrong. Wondering why I wasn't loved the same way. Now I know it wasn't about anything I did. It was about all of you being too cowardly to deal with the consequences of your actions." Uncle Tony tried to argue, but I was done listening. I told him he needed to leave, and that if he wanted any kind of relationship with me going forward, he needed to stop asking me to hide the truth to make everyone else comfortable. After he left, I called my dad. My real dad. The man who chose to raise me, even knowing I wasn't biologically his. "Dad, we need to talk." "I know, sweetheart," he said, his voice surprisingly calm. "Tony called me. He told you everything. Why didn't you ever tell me?" There was a long pause. "Because you're my daughter, Haiti. Biology doesn't change that. I didn't want you to feel like you had to choose between Tony and me, or like you were somehow less my child because we don't share DNA." I started crying again. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry Mom cheated. I'm sorry you had to find out I wasn't yours. I'm sorry you had to deal with all of this." "Honey, stop," he interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "You have nothing to apologize for. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just a baby who deserved to be loved and wanted, and that's exactly what you were. You are my daughter, in every way that matters." We talked for over an hour. He explained how hard it had been watching Grandma Margaret treat me differently all these years, but not wanting to cause more drama by confronting her. He told me how proud he was of the woman I'd become, and how he'd never regretted choosing to stay and raise me. He did ask me to consider taking down the post, not for Grandma Margaret's sake, but for other family members who might get hurt by the overwhelming attention. I told him I'd think about it. Over the next few days, the post continued to gain momentum. It had been shared hundreds of times, and some amateur internet detectives had actually figured out the timeline, posting comments that came eerily close to the truth about my parentage. Local news stations started following the story. A reporter from Channel 7 even called me, asking for an interview about family exclusion and emotional abuse. I declined, but the fact they were interested showed just how big this had gotten. Then, Grandma Margaret called me herself. Haiti, her voice was cold, commanding, the same tone she'd used my whole life when displeased. "You need to take down that post immediately." "Hi, Grandma. How are you doing?" I asked, a surprising calm in my voice. "Don't play games with me, young lady. That post is causing serious problems for this family." "What problems would those be?" "People are asking questions, making accusations, spreading rumors." "What rumors?" I pressed. A long, tense pause. "You know what rumors." Actually, I do now, Grandma. Uncle Tony came clean about everything. I know why you've always treated me differently. Another pause. Longer this time. Then you understand why that post needs to come down. Actually, it makes me want to keep it up even more. You've spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I didn't belong, like I was somehow less than everyone else in this family. And it was never about anything I did. It was about your inability to forgive a mistake that happened before I was even born. That mistake destroyed this family, she snapped. No, Grandma. Your reaction to it destroyed this family. You could have chosen love and forgiveness. Instead, you chose to punish an innocent child for the sins of the adults around her. I could hear her breathing getting heavier. She was furious. But for the first time in my life, I truly didn't care. If you don't take down that post, I will cut you out of my will completely. I actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Grandma, you've made it pretty clear over the years that I'm not getting anything from you anyway. Your threats don't scare me anymore. I could tell people the truth about what you really are. Go ahead, she spat. Uncle Tony already told me everything. The truth doesn't scare me. Apparently, it scares all of you, which is exactly why the post is staying up. She hung up on me. But the story doesn't end there. Because my post had done something I never expected. It had given other people permission to speak their truth, too. Great Aunt Helen called me that evening. She's Grandma Margaret's sister, and always been the rebel of that generation. Haiti, honey, she said, her voice warm and knowing, I saw your post, and I think it's about time someone stood up to Margaret. Aunt Helen, I wasn't trying to cause trouble. You were trying to cause trouble, and good for you. That woman has been controlling this family through guilt and money for decades, and it's about time someone called her out on it. Aunt Helen then unleashed stories I'd never heard. How Grandma Margaret used money to manipulate family decisions for years. How she played favorites with her own children, always holding financial support over their heads. How she tried to break up my parents' marriage when she first found out about the affair, not because she cared about my dad's feelings, but because she was embarrassed about what people would think. Your post has people talking, Haiti, Aunt Helen continued. People who have been quiet for years because they were afraid of Margaret's reaction. But now they see someone standing up to her, and they're finding their courage, too. And it was true. Over the following days, I started getting messages from family members I barely knew, thanking me for posting that photo. People shared their own stories of Grandma Margaret's unfairness, how she'd excluded them from events or gifts over some perceived slight. My second cousin, Rachel, Uncle David's daughter from his first marriage, reached out to tell me how Grandma Margaret refused to acknowledge her children because she didn't approve of Rachel's husband. My great-uncle Paul's son contacted me to say he'd been cut off from the family completely after coming out as gay in the 90s. It turned out, my Easter experience wasn't unique. Grandma Margaret had a long, insidious history of using exclusion and financial manipulation. I just happened to be the one who documented it and shared it publicly. The most surprising message came from Maria, Uncle Tony's wife. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I was nervous, knowing what I now knew about Tony, but she insisted she wanted to talk. We met at a Starbucks. Maria got straight to the point. I've known about you since Jake was 5 years old, she said. He and Emma were looking at old photo albums, and Jake pointed at a picture of you as a toddler and said, "Why does Haiti look exactly like Emma?" I couldn't unsee it after that. I was stunned. You've known for almost 15 years? I confronted Tony about it that same day. He broke down and told me everything. I was furious, of course. We almost got divorced. But after a lot of therapy and soul-searching, I realized that you weren't the enemy. You were just an innocent child caught up in adult mistakes. Why didn't you ever say anything? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Because Tony begged me not to. Because your parents begged me not to. Because Margaret convinced everyone that it was better for you if you never knew. She paused, her eyes filled with regret. But I've watched you grow up feeling excluded and unwanted, and I felt guilty about it every single day. Maria told me she'd been pushing Tony for years to tell me the truth. She believed I deserved to know. When I saw your post, I told Tony that if he didn't tell you the truth, I would. This family's commitment to protecting everyone except you has gone on long enough. She also shared something that made my heart swell. You know, Haiti, Jake and Emma have always felt like you were more their sister than their cousin, even before they knew the truth. There was just something about the connection between you three. That made me think about Jake and Emma and how they must be processing all of this. I decided to reach out. I texted Jake first, "Hey, I don't know if your dad told you what's going on, but I think we need to talk." He called me immediately. "Haiti, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. When Dad told us yesterday, it explains so much about why you always seem different around family stuff. Are you okay with it? Finding out I'm your half-sister instead of your cousin?" He paused, then his voice was full of emotion. "Are you kidding? This is the best news ever. It means we're even more family than we thought." Emma had a similar reaction when I called her, actually crying and saying, "Haiti, this explains why I've always felt so protective of you, and why I always thought Grandma Margaret was being unfair." Both of them were angry at their father for keeping the secret, but overwhelmingly excited about the idea of being my siblings. Emma even joked, "Does this mean I can borrow your clothes now that we're sisters?" The family dynamics were shifting in ways I never could have predicted. But the person I was most worried about was my dad, Robert. This whole situation had to be bringing up painful memories for him. When I called him to check in, he surprised me with his perspective. "You know, Haiti, in a weird way, I'm relieved it's all out in the open now. I've been watching you struggle with feeling excluded from this family for years, and I felt helpless to fix it without revealing the truth. Maybe now you can finally understand that none of it was your fault." "Dad, are you sure you're okay with all of this becoming public?" "Honestly? I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I should have done it years ago, but I was too worried about keeping the peace." "You're braver than I ever was." Meanwhile, my Instagram post continued to explode. Over 1,000 shares, hundreds of comments. People were dissecting every aspect of the photo: body language, facial expressions, family dynamics. Some comments were supportive, "Good for you for documenting this. Sometimes you need proof of how you're being treated." Others were critical, "This seems like a private family matter that shouldn't be aired on social media." But the vast majority were people sharing their own stories of family exclusion and praising me for speaking up. The story had even caught the attention of family therapy and psychology accounts, using it as an example of emotional abuse and family scapegoating. One licensed therapist commented with a long, detailed post about the psychological damage caused by exclusion and favoritism. But the most incredible development was happening within my extended family. The post had become a powerful catalyst for people to finally speak up about years of suppressed grievances with Grandma Margaret. My cousin Rachel started her own Facebook post about how she'd been excluded from family events for over a decade. Great Uncle Paul's son created an entire Twitter thread about coming out in a conservative family and being disowned. Even some of Grandma Margaret's neighbors started commenting about witnessing her cruel treatment of family members over the years. It was like my one Instagram post had opened the floodgates for everyone who had ever been hurt by her manipulative and exclusionary behavior. A week after my initial post, Uncle David called me. He was the one family member I hadn't heard from directly, and I was curious about his perspective since he was usually Grandma Margaret's golden child. "Haiti," he said, his voice tight, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you trying to destroy our family?" I was quiet for a moment. "Uncle David, I posted a family photo with a caption about being grateful for traditions. If that's destroying the family, then maybe the family was already pretty fragile. You know it's more than that. You knew exactly what you were doing when you posted that picture." "You're right," I admitted, my voice steady. I didn't know what I was doing. I was documenting the moment when I realized I would never be treated as an equal member of this family, no matter what I accomplished or how hard I tried. But did you have to make it so public? Did you have to humiliate Mom like this? That's when it hit me. Uncle David wasn't calling because he cared about me. He was calling because Grandma Margaret's public embarrassment was threatening his financial pipeline. Uncle David, I said, my voice low. Are you worried about me, or are you worried that Grandma Margaret might cut off your allowance? A long, damning silence. That's what I thought, I continued. You've never cared about how she treated me before, and you don't care now. You're just worried that her being exposed as emotionally abusive might affect your meal ticket. That's not fair, Haiti. What's not fair is a 28-year-old woman spending her entire life wondering what she did to make her grandmother hate her, only to find out it was never about her at all. What's not fair is being excluded from family gifts and events because of an affair I had nothing to do with. What's not fair is a family that chose to protect everyone except the person who was hurt the most. Uncle David tried to argue, but I wasn't interested. I told him that if he wanted any relationship with me, he needed to start by acknowledging that I had been treated unfairly. Until then, we didn't have much to talk about. 2 weeks after my original post, something truly unexpected happened. Grandma Margaret showed up at my apartment. I was shocked to see her standing at my door. She looked smaller than usual, older, and there was something in her expression I'd never seen before. It might have been vulnerability, but with her, it was hard to tell. We need to talk, she said. I let her in, made tea, and we sat in my living room in awkward silence. Finally, she spoke. I want you to know that I never intended for you to be hurt. I looked at her carefully. But you did intend to exclude me from family gifts and events? Yes. And you did intend to treat me differently than Jake and Emma? Yes. Then how did you not intend for me to be hurt? What did you think the result would be? She was quiet for a long time, staring into her teacup. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. I thought if I kept you at a distance, it would be easier. Easier for who? I asked, my voice sharp. For me. For everyone. I thought if I didn't get too attached to you, if I didn't treat you like my real granddaughter, then when the truth eventually came out, it wouldn't hurt as much. I felt my anger rising again. So, you decided to hurt me for 28 years to protect yourself from potential future pain? I know how it sounds, Haiti. I know it was wrong, but when I looked at you, all I could see was the affair that nearly destroyed my son's marriage. All I could think about was how your existence was proof of Linda's betrayal. I was a baby, Grandma. I didn't betray anyone. I know that now. I've always known that, really. But I was so angry, and I didn't know how to separate my feelings about what happened from my feelings about you. We sat in silence again. I could see her struggling, but I wasn't ready to make this easy for her. The post, she said finally. It's caused quite a stir. People are saying terrible things about me, about our family. Are they saying anything that isn't true? I asked. She looked at me sharply. Some of it is true. Some of it is exaggerated. Which parts are exaggerated? Another long pause. Then, a sigh. I suppose most of it is true. I was genuinely surprised by her honesty. I had expected her to come here, demand I take down the post, try to manipulate me with guilt or threats. Instead, she seemed genuinely defeated. What do you want from me, Grandma? I want to make this right. How? I don't know, she admitted, finally meeting my gaze. I was hoping you could tell me. I looked at this woman who had made my childhood so confusing and painful, who had withheld love and acceptance for reasons that had nothing to do with me. And I realized something surprising. I didn't hate her anymore. I felt sorry for her. Grandma, I said softly. I don't think you can make this right. You can't give me back those years. You can't erase the feeling of being unwanted or the confusion I carried for so long. I paused. But you can start by acknowledging what you did. Publicly. Her eyes widened. Publicly? Yes. On my Instagram post. Tell everyone what you just told me. That you were wrong. That you hurt an innocent child. And that you're sorry. She stared at me, then at her teacup. I waited, the silence stretched between us. Finally, she took a deep breath. All right, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'll do it. Later that day, a comment appeared on my Instagram post. It was from Grandma Margaret's official account. It read, "To Haiti, and to my family, I owe a profound apology. For years, I allowed my own anger and pain from past events to cloud my judgment and lead me to treat Haiti unfairly. My actions at Easter, and many times before, were deliberate and born of a misplaced anger that should never have been directed at an innocent child. I convinced myself I was protecting everyone by keeping a secret, but in truth, I was only causing more pain. I am deeply sorry for the hurt I have caused you, Haiti, and for the damage my actions have inflicted on our family. It was wrong. And I am ready to face the consequences and try to make amends." The internet, naturally, went wild. The story exploded again, this time with a new, even more dramatic twist. Family members and strangers alike were in disbelief. And then the calls started again. But this time, they were different. Uncle Tony called me crying again, but this time, it was tears of relief. Haiti, when I saw Mom's comment, I realized that if she could find the courage to apologize publicly, then I could find the courage to face the consequences of my actions. He told me he and Maria were starting marriage counseling to work through the affair and its aftermath. He also said he wanted to have a real relationship with me as my father, if I was open to it. "I know Robert will always be your dad in the ways that matter most," he said, "but I'd like to be part of your life too, if you let me." Jake and Emma were over the moon about Grandma Margaret's apology. Emma called me sobbing, "Haiti, I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself, and I'm so happy that Grandma finally did the right thing." Even Uncle David called to apologize for his previous conversation. "I was so focused on protecting Mom," he admitted, "that I didn't think about protecting you. That was wrong." My parents were relieved that the truth was finally out in the open. My mom, Linda, came over the day after Grandma Margaret's comment and cried in my living room. "Haiti, I'm so sorry. I thought we were protecting you by keeping the secret, but we were really just protecting ourselves from having to face what we'd done. You deserve to know the truth, and you deserve to be loved and accepted regardless of how you came into this world." My dad, Robert, was characteristically straightforward. "I'm proud of you for handling this whole situation with such grace and strength. You forced this family to confront some ugly truths, and that took real courage." But the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. Great Aunt Helen called me. "Haiti, honey," she said, her voice full of admiration, "you did something that none of us adults had the backbone to do. You stood up to Margaret and forced her to face the consequences of her actions. That took real guts, and I admire the hell out of you for it." The Instagram post stayed up, and it became something of a viral sensation. It was featured in articles about family dynamics, social media accountability, and the power of documentation. A few family therapy organizations reached out, asking if I wanted to share my story as an example of how to handle family exclusion and emotional manipulation. I declined most of the media requests, but I did agree to one interview with a podcast about family relationships. I wanted to share my story because I realized that what happened to me wasn't unique. There are lots of people out there who feel excluded from their families for reasons they don't understand, and I wanted them to know they weren't alone. 6 months later, our family looks completely different than it did before that fateful Easter lunch. Grandma Margaret and I have started having weekly coffee dates where we're slowly, carefully rebuilding our relationship. She's told me stories about her own childhood, about the pain that shaped her into someone who controlled others through exclusion and manipulation. It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it helps me understand it. Uncle Tony and I are developing a relationship as father and daughter, which is strange, but wonderful. He's teaching me about the construction business, and I'm helping him understand social media marketing for his company. Jake and Emma officially call me their sister now, and we're closer than we've ever been. My relationship with my parents has also deepened. Knowing the whole truth about my origins has actually brought us closer together. My dad and I talk openly about what it was like for him to raise a child who wasn't biologically his, and the incredible, unconditional love that transcended biology. It all started with a petty act of exclusion, a little white envelope deliberately withheld. But that moment, that small injustice, became the catalyst that ripped apart decades of silence, forced painful truths into the light, and ultimately, paved the way for a deeper, more honest, and truly loving family. It turns out, sometimes the most brutal honesty is the only way to heal.